Welcome to this video tutorial on Scratch 3.0. I'm really excited you're here because this means you are ready to start your coding journey in Scratch. A couple reasons that we choose Scratch as our main platform. A, because it's free. B, it's very intuitive and easy to learn, yet you can tear the roof off of projects that you create with this. And finally, it's social. So for example, if we come in this search bar, we can really type in anything we would want. So for example, if I typed in math, and these are all the projects people with Scratch accounts have created. So if I click in here, this math dash here, I could heart this, star this, remix, which is kind of like making a copy in Google platforms. And this is how many views this has, as well as leaving comments. So this feature of Scratch is really nice as you're able to view other projects and improve them potentially, or just view them. Where we're going to go today is this create button here, because we are going to create some code together. So if we look at this main platform of Scratch 3.0, we'll see on the very right hand side, this is where any of our actions are going to take place. The center of the screen is where we're going to drag any code that we will create. And on the very left hand side, we'll see there are a ton of different blocks in different colors that would allow us to do different things. So what we're going to start with today is down here, we've got our character, our sprite named Scratchy Cat, kind of the face of Scratch. And you'll see he's located down here where it says Sprite 1. We can add any sort of characters down here where it says choose a sprite. We can upload a sprite from online, so any images we found online. Scratch could surprise us with a random sprite. We could paint something. So if I came in here, just like any paint tool you've used in the past, this would allow us to draw, we can type, we can fill, so forth, and we'll see it appears on the right hand side here. We could also choose a sprite from the characters that Scratch has created. So we've got a ton of options here. I tend to be a big animal fan. I'm going to come in here and choose this dog here, Dot. Wonderful. So we have our characters on the screen now. Now, notice if I click any of these characters, let's choose our Scratchy Cat here. We can, first off, change the size. So it's at 100 right now. If I made this 400, much bigger. Same thing if I made this 10, you can barely see it. I'm going to put it back to 100. Direction here, faces forward, faces down, up, left, right, so forth. Right here, the position on the screen, what's going to help us understand this is if we upload a backdrop. So a backdrop is a background. Again, we can upload from online. Scratch can surprise us. We can paint one or choose one from Scratch's backdrops that they've created. We're going to scroll all the way down and choose this XY grid today, as this will allow us to understand how the positioning in Scratch works. So notice if I am on my dot here, we'll see this big coordinate grid. Just like your math class starts at 0, 0, we go over to negative 240 and 240 in the x direction. Y's go down to negative 180 and up to positive 180. We'll see dot is currently located at the x value of negative 131 and up 2. If I wanted dot to move higher, I could make this 100 for the y value. If I wanted dot to move down, I could make this negative 100, so forth. So the X and Y position, any position our sprite is on the screen, is based on this coordinate grid. Now blocks on the very left hand side here. I'm going to drag over an event block, this when the green flag is clicked. That's a very common way to start a program. And you'll notice these blocks attach from top to bottom is how this would read. So if I clicked the green flag here over on the right, my character, right now my dot is who I'm on, would move 10 steps and then say hello, so top to bottom. Notice my Scratchy Cat has no code on this screen. Therefore, right now, my Scratchy Cat is doing nothing. But I could change that, of course, by dragging some code onto this screen. So very careful as you're coding and you want something to happen to a certain sprite that you're clicked on that sprite as you're putting the code on that screen. Wonderful. Here are the basics that we need today. Let's get started here in some of these blocks. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of my dot and get rid of my squiggly line here. We're just going to have our Scratchy Cat as we learn some of these blocks. So the first set of blocks we're going to learn today are the event blocks. The event blocks are used to start a program. So if I drag out this green flag, that's a very typical way to start a program. As soon as I hit the green flag, whatever is below this block will happen. I've also got when any sort of key is pressed. So I've got the space key, any arrows, letters, and numbers will prompt the code that is below. When the sprite is clicked, if I clicked my sprite, whatever is below this block would take place. We're going to leave our when the green flag is clicked today. The next set of blocks we're going to look at are motion. Motion allows any movement with our character or our sprite. So for example, if I drag out this move block and I hit the green flag, notice I'm moving very little, 10 steps, but in the scheme of negative 240 to 240, 10 steps should be pretty little. I could change this by making this 100, and I'd move much further, or negative 100, and I would move backwards. So there's some movement. We could also turn, so we'll just turn 15. So notice I'm going to move 30 and then turn over and over and over. If I wanted to kind of reset my sprite here, that's a common question that is asked. I'm going to come to the events and drag out this when the space key is pressed. So typically when I mean reset, I want to go back to the center, which would be at 0, 0. And I want to be facing forward, which is this direction key that we also saw over here in our sprite screen. So direction 90 is facing forward. So notice as soon as I hit the space key, now my cat is facing forward. Wonderful. So we have events, we have motion. The other block we're going to tackle before we jump into our first challenge is pen. Now you'll see I don't see pen anywhere down this side, but if we come down here to this extension piece and click here, Scratch has many new features here in Scratch 3.0 that are really going to enhance the experience for kids. For example, Makey Makey can hook up. We've got video sensing, so it can detect from the webcam any movement that the student is using. But we need pen tool here for this next piece. So I'm going to click pen, and now you'll see we've opened up many more blocks that we can use here. With the pen today, what I want us to see is, first of all, when I put my pen down, wherever my sprite is moving now, it's going to draw a line. So I'll hit the green flag, and since my pen is down, not only did I move, but I'm drawing. I can change the color, change the size, so forth. As soon as I put the pen up, my cat will no longer draw. Another cool feature we can do here with pen is we can stamp. So if I hit the green flag, now notice if I move my sprite, it has left a little stamp of my sprite here. So we can stamp, we can draw a line, so forth. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to erase all when I hit the space key. And now everything has disappeared except my main sprite here. So we have just looked at events, motion, and pen. You've really tackled a series of these blocks here. This leaves us to our first challenge, which is going to be drawing a square in Scratch. So notice we've just got a simple square here, 4 sides, 90-degree angle, so forth. These are the blocks that are going to help you in this challenge. So you will need events. We've got when the green flag is clicked, when the space key is clicked, motion blocks, and the pen blocks. So as we would ask our students to do, we would not reveal the answer. That would not be the best way to learn. I'm going to ask you pause your video right now at this point and try this challenge before you continue. Because as you play your video back, we are going to jump to a solution. So pause the video. This will get you the best experience with this intro to Scratch. Welcome back. I hope that you have paused the video and now resumed as you're ready to look at one of the solutions. One great part about Scratch is there are many, many, many solutions as we look at code, and this is great. Great for students, great for teachers. So here was one way this task could be done. Notice I've got when the green flag is clicked, and I'm going to set my pen down. I can move as many steps as I want here. I chose 30, you could choose 100, it would just move further. So I'm moving 30, then I'm turning 90, the degree in a square, and I'm doing this 4 times here and lifting my pen up at the end. As soon as I hit the space key, everything will erase here. So this is one way we could do this. Now this lends itself nicely to our next set of blocks, which are the control blocks. Now you'll notice as we look in here, control blocks are used to make things more efficient. So for example, can we solve things in different ways? Can we get rid of unnecessary steps? So forth. So in this case, this is going to allow us to do that. So I've got a wait block, a repeat block, forever block, so forth, moving on down here. So with control here, let's look at a simple task like we did in our past where we're moving a certain amount of steps. Let's say we're moving 30 steps. Notice I click the green flag for as many times as I want this to happen, and I'm going to lift my pen up and clear this so that goes away. Super. Now, what if I just wanted to hit the green flag once and I wanted to move a series, but I wanted this to happen in 30-step intervals? In the control here, first thing I want to do is wait between my steps. And let's say I wanted to repeat this motion, we'll say 4 times. So notice the difference here. I'm hitting the green flag once, moving 30, waiting, 30, waiting, 30, waiting, and 30, waiting. It's happening 4 times. So this is the repeat block here. Now, another very frequently used piece in the control is this if, then, else block. So as we're looking at here, whatever is under my if block, if it is true, is going to happen. Otherwise, something else will happen. So for example, let's move our sprite here to, we'll say -20, 0. So move our cat here. Actually, let's do -40, 0. There we go, a little bit further away from the center. So what we're going to do here is we are going to say if my, we'll go down in motion, we haven't used this quite yet, my x position, which we'll see here is currently at -40, if it is, in operators, this will come soon, is equal to 0. Then, in looks, we can say things. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, I am in the center. Else, so basically if we are not at an x position of 0, we're going to say, help me get to the center. Now, when, we're going to add something else here. We'll say when the space key is pressed, we are going to move 10 steps forward. So notice we're at -40, and if I move 10 steps to the right, I need to do this 4 times before I hit the middle. Now, one other piece in control. As soon as I run this program, it's going to read through every piece here. So if I want this to continually read my position, I need this forever block around the outside. So let's notice how this will work. I'm going to hit my green flag and it's saying help me get to the center because my x position is not equal to 0. I'm going to hit the space key. Notice I'm at -30. I'm going to continue doing this, -20, -10. Now I'm at 0, 0, and it will say I am in the center because my x position is equal to 0. So these are the control blocks here. Now you're ready for your next challenge. Your next challenge wants you to take the code that we just created where we drew our square, and it wants you to make this more efficient. So can you do the same exact job that accomplished this task before using 6 blocks or less? Good luck. Again, pause the video here. As soon as you play, we will look at a solution together. Welcome back. Here is an example solution. Again, there are many solutions as we look at these pieces together today. So what we can do instead is rather than having this repeating 4 times here, we can wrap 2 of those into a repeat 4 times block. And this code is not only more efficient, but is much easier to read here as we look ahead. Scratch. We just looked at the control blocks, and now we're going to jump into sensing and data. Now these are used, and this is a great feature of Scratch, is that we can get input from a user using Scratch and do something with what they are choosing. So what we're going to start with here today is sensing, and this is in the blue, light blue, and we'll notice here I want to drag out this block and compare it to this block, say. So we'll start here with say. Say hello for 2 seconds. Notice, does as follows. Now when I ask, the difference here is I've got this typing spot in the bottom of my screen. So I could type in, what is my name? I could type in Ashley. And notice I typed in Ashley, and this answer block here, if I click this, Ashley is stored in this answer block. So if we can do something with this answer block, we could do many pieces with my name. So the first thing we're going to do now is come down to variables. This lends itself very nicely to a variable. We're going to create a variable right here, and we're going to call it name. And I'm going to set whatever they've typed in to the variable name. Now notice the difference. If I hit my green flag and I type in my name, it is stored here. Or a variable can change. I could type in Sue or Mike or Connor, so forth. I could type in many names and it's stored in this variable. Now, what could I do with this variable? I could do many things. I could say hello to this person. Oops. I could say hello to this person by dragging the name variable in here. Notice what happens now. I'll type in my name and it will say hello and then Ashley. We're going to talk about operators in a minute, but we can drag these out for the sake of the learning. Notice how when I ran this, it said hello and then it said Ashley. If I wanted this to happen in one sentence, this is where a join block would come into play. This is where I can allow something called a string or a variable here to be joined into one piece. So the difference here would be I could type in my name and it's saying it in one sentence. So this is a big feature of Scratch, are sensing and variables. Now the other piece I want to make known before we jump out of variables are lists. So just like math, we've got a table here. Let's call this table numbers. And notice this table is popping up here. Now we are not going to need to make use of name anymore, so notice if I uncheck here it disappears off the screen. But I am going to need a variable called how many. Alright, super. So we're going to have a list of numbers and we want this to be able to display on the screen. So the first question we want to ask is how many numbers are in your list? And whatever they type in, we're going to place into this entry how many. So here's how this would go. I have 5 numbers in my list. Run it again. I actually have 3 numbers in my list this time. I have 100 numbers in my list, so forth. So we know how many numbers are in the list, but now we want to be able to add these to the list. So in variables, if I scroll down to my list, I've got a whole other set of blocks. The first thing I might want to do is add their numbers to this list. So let's actually ask them, we'll say type in a number in your list. And whatever they type in, we will add that answer to the list numbers. So let's see how this runs. So how many numbers are in your list? We'll say 3. Type a number in your list. We'll say 20. And notice now it is in my list. However, I have 3 numbers in my list and I was only able to type in 1. So the next piece I want to do is come to my control block and I want to repeat this a certain amount of times. Now how many times do we want to repeat this? Well, depending on how many numbers are in my list, that's how many I want to repeat this. So that will change. Again, it's a variable. Now one other thing we want to do is we want to clear out 20 here. So I'm going to say when the space key is pressed, and we'll come down here and I'm going to delete everything in my list. So I'm going to do that now before we start. All right, how many numbers in your list? We'll say 4. We'll say the number 20, 21, 22, and 23. And notice now I've got 4 numbers in my list. All right, now that you've looked at sensing and you've looked at variables, you're ready for your next challenge, which is you want the user to select the size of the square. So notice they've typed in a side length of 50 and the square is very little, or they've typed in the side length of 200 and the square is very big. So what are you going to need for this? You're going to need sensing blocks. We're going to need to ask what is the length of your square, and we need a variable called side length, and we're going to set side length to a certain value. So again, pause the video here and try this out before you come back, as we will reveal the answer, and trying this on your own first will lead to the best learning. Welcome back. Here's an example to solution to the challenge here of selecting the size of the square. So we'll start with asking, what do you want the length of your square to be? And we'll store that as the side length. Now the only thing that's changed in our code from before is that we want to move this side length amount. So rather than the side length being something small like 20 or something really big like 200, it will be whatever the user types in here. And this leads us to the very last piece of our tutorial here on operators. Now, one valuable block in operators is the pick random block, and this is used for games or a lot of just random outcomes if you're thinking of probability, so forth. So this can be used a lot, but we want to introduce a handful of other things in operators before we get started. So what I want to see first is let's come down to our variables. Let's get rid of all of these by just 2-finger tapping or right-clicking and deleting. And I want to create a variable called number1 and number2, and we'll get rid of our list here as well. All right, super, and I want both of these to show up on my screen. So we'll see if we get number1 and number2. Now I'm going to get input from my user, and I'm going to say, what is number1? And we'll set their number1 to the answer. And I'm going to duplicate this by right-clicking, and we're just going to change what is number2 and set number2 to the answer. All right, what could we do with this? Let's come into variables and let's add a variable. Let's call it sum. We're going to set the sum, and of course we know sum means addition here to number1 plus number2. So we'll come into variables. We have number1 plus number2. Now let's see how this would work. All right, so number1 is, we'll say 5. Number2, we'll say is 15. We know the sum should be 20, and it appears as follows. So operators, these are your mathy blocks. They allow you to add, subtract, multiply, divide, any of the operations here. The join block we saw earlier creates one sentence, so forth. The block that we're going to focus on a bit today is this pick random block. So what if we instead here set number1 to picking a random number between, we'll say 1 and 10 sounds great. All right, let's run this. All right, so it wants what is number2, we'll say is 4. And we've got a sum here as 9. Let's run this again. Notice how number1 has changed. We'll make number2 7. And we've got a sum here. We'll run it again. Number1 is different. We're choosing number2 to be 10, so forth. We could also come in here and pick another random number here. Notice 5 and 10. Oh, and we need to get rid of a few more things here. Here we go. Let's get rid of this question now. We don't need that anymore. All right, now I've got two random numbers, and it's finding the sum every time that we run this program. All right, you're up to your next challenge, your final challenge here today. Can we create a square of random size? You'll need the side length, and you will need the operators. I've got restraints here of 10 to 200. If we get smaller than 10, we're barely going to see the line as we're drawing a square. And 200, you'll notice as you're playing around, if you hit the side of the screen because you get too big, it kind of makes things go a little bit wonky as you're drawing. So I would say 10 and 200 are a great parameters as we're drawing today and picking a random length. So again, pause the video, try this out, and come back for a solution. Welcome back. Here's where we're at. We're going to set the side length to 10 to 200, and we're going to take this side length just as we had in our code before and run here. So notice we don't need any more prompting, no more sensing. Now this is all based on random numbers that are chosen in Scratch. Congratulations, you've made it to the end of this tutorial here. After seeing this tutorial, you are really having a solid understanding in many of these blocks here in Scratch. As always with anything, there's always so much more to learn, but you have such a solid start in your understanding here. The next step I would say is take a look at our csandmath.org website here. CS. And as you come to this page and you enter any of our lessons here as you're ready to launch these into your own math classroom, with the learning that you have just shown, you are ready to do any of our lessons that we have in our website here. So you've got primary and secondary. Any of these lessons you would definitely be able to launch in your own classroom or launch on your own as you're trying to practice this. The learning that you have just demonstrated shows that you could do any of these lessons. Thank you so much for watching, and best of luck with your coding journey.